In a quiet hospital on the 5th floor, there was a small room that most people passed without noticing. Inside sat Margaret, a 72-year-old woman recovering slowly from heart surgery. Days blended into weeks and weeks into months. Each morning she woke to the same routine, the soft hum of machines, the careful steps of nurses, and the cold light falling through a single window. That window faced nothing inspiring, only a tall brick wall from the building across the way. Gray, silent, unmoving. Margaret often stared at it and whispered the same words. Another gray day, believing they described not only the view, but her life. Margaret had once been lively and talkative. She loved gardening, morning walks, and listening to old songs on the radio. But illness had shrunk her world to this room. Friends visited less often. Conversations grew shorter, and hope felt like something from another lifetime. The wall outside the window became a symbol of everything she had lost. Each brick felt like another reminder that her best days were behind her, sealed away from color and joy. One morning, the quiet was broken by the sound of a bed being rolled in. A new patient was placed beside her. He was younger, in his 40s, with tired eyes but a warm smile. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. "I'm Daniel. Looks like we'll be roommates." Margaret offered a faint smile, not wanting to be rude, but too drained to feel friendly. "There's not much good about mornings anymore," she replied. Daniel glanced toward the window and nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe you're just looking from the wrong window," he said lightly. Margaret pointed toward the brick wall. "That's the only one we have," Daniel chuckled, not mockingly, but gently. "You're only seeing with your eyes," he said. "Sometimes the heart sees more." Margaret said nothing. She had heard many comforting phrases since coming to the hospital, and most of them felt empty. Still, there was something calm in Daniel's voice that made her listen. The next morning, Daniel spoke again while sunlight crept into the room. "Today," he said, "I see a wide green field outside. The sun is rising, and a little boy is flying a bright red kite. 2 dogs are running through the grass, trying to catch butterflies." Margaret laughed despite herself. "You must be dreaming," she said. "There's only a wall," Daniel smiled. "Maybe so," he replied, "but my dreams make the day lighter. Close your eyes." "Try it." Reluctantly, Margaret closed her eyes. For a moment, she felt foolish. Then, slowly, the image formed. She imagined the kite dancing in the sky, the dogs barking happily, the grass moving with the wind. When she opened her eyes, the wall was still there, but something inside her had shifted. For the first time in months, her smile felt real. Days passed, and Daniel continued his morning ritual. One day he described cherry trees in full bloom, their petals falling like snow. Another day, children played by a pond, laughing as frogs jumped into the water. Sometimes he spoke of a couple dancing in the rain, unconcerned with time or worries. Margaret began to look forward to these stories. She asked questions, added details, and laughed more often. The gray wall no longer felt so heavy when she knew beauty could exist beyond it. Doctors and nurses noticed the change. Margaret's blood pressure improved. She ate better, slept better, and even began walking longer distances during therapy. They wrote it down as progress, but Margaret knew it was more than medicine. Hope had returned quietly, carried by simple words and shared imagination. Daniel never claimed credit. He only smiled and said, "The mind is powerful when it has something good to hold on to." One morning, Margaret woke up, and immediately sensed something was wrong. Daniel's bed was empty. No smile, no greeting, no voice describing another beautiful scene. A nurse entered the room, her expression gentle but serious. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Daniel passed away during the night." Margaret felt the air leave her lungs. Her chest tightened, not from illness, but from grief. Tears filled her eyes. "He gave me so much hope," she whispered, "and I never even thanked him." The room felt colder without Daniel. For days, Margaret stared at the wall again, but this time it wasn't empty. It held memories. She carried his words with her, repeating them in her mind when nights felt long. A few days later, she asked the nurse if her bed could be moved closer to the window. The nurse hesitated. "You know it's just a wall," she said gently. Margaret nodded. "I know," she replied, "but I want to see it closely." When the bed was moved, Margaret looked carefully out the window and gasped. The wall had changed. It was no longer plain and gray. Painted across it was a beautiful mural, a golden field, a boy flying a red kite, and 2 dogs chasing butterflies, exactly as Daniel had described on that first morning. Margaret began to cry, overwhelmed by gratitude rather than sadness. "He wasn't imagining it," she whispered. "He created it for me." The nurse smiled through her own tears. "Before he passed," she said, "Daniel asked an art volunteer to paint this wall. He said he wanted you to always have something beautiful to look at." Margaret reached out and touched the glass softly. In that moment, she understood that kindness does not disappear when people leave. It stays like sunlight through a window, warming lives in ways we may never fully see. Margaret recovered and eventually left the hospital, but she carried the lesson with her forever. Hope does not always come from changing our circumstances. Sometimes it comes from someone helping us see differently. Even in the darkest rooms, a small act of kindness can open a window of light. Stories like Margaret's remind us that healing is not only physical. In hospitals, homes, workplaces, and quiet personal battles, people are often surrounded by invisible walls. These walls are built from fear, loneliness, regret, and exhaustion. We may not notice them because on the outside, everything looks normal. A smile, a polite greeting, a routine conversation can hide a deep ache inside. Daniel understood something powerful. You do not need to fix everything to help someone heal. Sometimes you only need to help them imagine something better. For viewers watching this video, take a moment to think about the people around you. Is there someone who seems tired, discouraged, or stuck behind their own gray wall? You may not have solutions, money, or perfect advice, but you do have words, you have time, you have presence. A kind sentence, a shared story, or a simple act of care can change the way someone experiences their day. Like Daniel, you may never know how far your kindness travels or how long it stays. Margaret never forgot the mural, but more importantly, she never forgot the feeling it gave her. It reminded her that even when life feels unfair and limited, meaning can still be created. Hope is not naive. It is brave. It chooses light in places where darkness seems permanent. And when hope is shared, it multiplies. So as you leave this story, carry one simple idea with you. Be intentional with your kindness. Speak gently. Imagine beauty where others see walls. Because one day, without realizing it, you might become someone's window of hope, and that is a legacy more powerful than anything else we leave behind. Thank you for listening today, everyone. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring English stories only on English Life Tailies. Be the window that lets light in.